David Eby is getting crushed. Absolutely demolished. He doesn't know what to do, and neither do the people who are supporting him know what to do. You know, the whole conversation and the fight that's taking place right now on the federal level between provinces, between Alberta and BC, on the issue of a pipeline going from Alberta to BC, and the fight that's been taking place between those two, Danielle Smith and David Eby. And, well, Danielle Smith is laying the smack down and not letting up, and David Eby doesn't even know what to do and is losing the battle in the process, which is looking like a pipeline could be approved sooner rather than later to go through to BC. It is wild. That on the heels of the auto industry absolutely collapsing right now because Carney refused to take it seriously and now is offering to buy votes in order to stay in power because he knows it's going to get so bad. It is wild. This and so much more. Welcome to the Elevate Podcast. I'm your host, Josh. If you're getting any value from today's episode, take the time to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us to grow. It helps us to get to new audiences and helps people see that there is something different than what the mainstream media has to offer. Now, let's get into our first story, shall we? I wrote this a couple days ago after Danielle Smith went on CTV, was getting in the face of everybody, and then seeing David Eby try to play catch-up. I said this: Danielle Smith has Eby on the ropes in this narrative war. She was the first to the punch to get on media, and it looks like Eby's desperately playing catch-up now. And that's exactly what we're witnessing. Politics is not only about the decisions you make in the boardroom or the people that you meet in the community. It's simply about how you communicate your messaging in the media. And this particular issue, when pipelines are desperately needed to be built right now in order to get our product to different markets that aren't the United States, well, pipelines are going to have to go through places like BC. Pipelines are going to have to go through other provinces to get to the East Coast. That means cooperation across provinces is going to have to happen. And if any premier says, nah, I'm not going to do that, well, you have to then plead your case. You can sulk and mope and go on TikTok, or you can take the fight to the streets and go talk to people, get on media, do your own social media, but also go to mainstream media, go to podcasts, go to where everyone else is. And guess what? David Eby tried to communicate his message by going on his TikTok, hoping people would listen to him. And if you remember about the stats we learned yesterday, politicians' social media accounts are only garnering 18% of the attention online. Shows like ours and other influencers are at 47%, and the mainstream media is at 28%. Meaning, he's leaving a significant amount on the table by not going out and getting his message out there. And so just by putting a TikTok, putting Danielle and insulting Danielle Smith wasn't going to be enough. And it wasn't. The only reason anyone knows about this jabroni is because Danielle Smith uttered his name and said he's un-Canadian and put it on her X account. Went on CTV, went to Quebec, talked to Lego, is getting on podcasts, talked to Rebel News. She's getting out there and doing the legwork that Eby refuses to do. She's absolutely smoking him, doing laps around him. And the best that Eby could do was play catch-up. He saw Danielle Smith went on Vashti's show. He showed up the next day via Zoom. Couldn't even so much as muster up the courage to leave his province. No, had to do it via Zoom. And then started misrepresenting Danielle Smith's arguments. And, well, Vashti had to call him out on it. You can see it right here.
Create confusion and chaos when we need to be growing our economy with real projects. It doesn't make any sense.
But again, Premier, she hasn't done exactly what you're saying. Like, you're misrepresenting it. For example, I have pushed her on both of the interviews that I did on the prospect of public money, and she outright says, like, public money backing this pipeline would be a bad thing. That the endeavor that she has embarked on is to secure a private proponent, not for more taxpayer money to go towards this. She said that repeatedly about TMX as well. She agrees with you on that. But I guess what I just don't understand is, why don't you want to embark on a conversation like the other ones you talked about how something like this could potentially be possible? What are the things that need to be addressed? Like, is there not a conversation to be had given the crisis we face from the United States, that one pipeline to your coast already adds 0.5% to our GDP on an annual basis. Like, isn't that worth sitting down rather than reflexively saying, no way, no how, this isn't Danielle Smith's world?
Calls him out for what it was. Can you wake up, David Eby, and realize what is happening around you in our country right now? We are in free fall. Can you do something to help a brother out? As I said, he's been on the ropes. And Danielle Smith, it's proving that Danielle Smith is winning the war. When Doug Ford comes out and supports it and says, David Eby needs to get out of the way.
Danielle ships in 4 million barrels a day into the U.S. And what I believe in, let's diversify our trading partners. Let's start getting a pipeline going east, another one going west, going north, and yes, going south as well. But it's pretty crazy. Our friends, the Irvings, aren't using Canadian oil. They're importing the oil. And sometimes, as I just learned, will come all the way down, all the way back up, and back up to their facility.
He's like, we need to get pipelines going now, immediately. I don't care. It needs to happen. Even Doug Ford says it. And Poilievre called out David Eby directly on this very issue as well. He says, bye-bye.
Well, it's too slow, and the government should green light it today. The government should signal that they favor, the federal government favors a pipeline from Hardisty, Alberta, beautiful Hardisty, Alberta, to the Pacific coast, probably Kitimat or Prince Rupert. And, we know the economics make sense. We know that there are private businesses that will be glad to build it once there's a permit provided by the government. The only thing Mark Carney needs to do, two things I just say. This is exclusively a federal decision. So David Eby is well worth ignoring. He has no legal and constitutional authority to block this project. It's all up to the federal government. The federal government and Mark Carney need to do only one thing to make it happen. Get out of the way. Pretty
simple. Obviously saying here, hey, Carney, can you wake up and just get this thing going, please? Secondly, him saying, David Eby it doesn't matter anymore. David Eby needs to get out of the way, and he can actually be ignored on this because this is national interest, and we don't really care now. This is an emergency. It needs to get done. It needs to be done now. David Eby is getting crushed on all fronts. Danielle Smith is winning the war, is winning the narrative war on top of that. Angus Reid puts out a poll in overwhelming fashion. Blue, strongly supportive of a pipeline through BC. Yellow, meaning they oppose. Gray, meaning they're unsure. Support of a new Alberta pipeline to the North BC coast. Canada, overwhelmingly 59% want it built. Even Atlantic Canada is saying, please build it. Quebec's the lowest out of anybody, and they're at 50%, with obviously Alberta, Saskatchewan being the front runners. Danielle Smith is winning this narrative war, and David Eby is about to get railroaded in the process. He can complain and try to shift blame, say, let's talk about the First Nations. Let's talk about our beautiful coast. You're not acknowledging the issue that we're currently facing right now. First off, we're getting smoked by the Chinese. Significant pressure is being put on us because of American trade strategy. We need to start increasing our GDP in this country. And it's time to start doing so and start getting out of the way and stop trying to kind of pee all over yourself, hoping, praying Xi Jinping will notice you. And I think this is good news. This is good news that people are seeing right through it, see the need for it, and see this is what needs to happen for us to see prosperity in our country. We don't only want Mark Carney being strongmanned into building a pipeline from Alberta to the United States only and continue to have more reliance on the United States. We also want to see that pipeline built, yeah. But we also want to see a pipeline built to our coasts. We'll start with BC first and start diversifying our trade partners. Because, we're starting to see the need to diversify our trade partners. As news broke, as we talked about earlier this week, that our auto sector isn't going to be seeing a deal on autos from the United States anytime soon or at all. It's time that we start taking care of our own, taking care of ourselves, stop relying on America to essentially employ our people. What a thought. And people are wondering, it's like, okay, let's talk about we have such a booming auto industry. We think about the Oshawas of the world, the Windsors of the world, these places that have significant auto manufacturing. And they're all plants that are from American companies. But as me and Reg talked on the show last night, we don't have Canadian auto manufacturing. We don't have a Canadian auto company. What's it going to take for an entrepreneur in Canada to create an auto company? Well, that's a bigger systemic issue that has to be addressed, because we simply do not have the entrepreneurial environment to lay a sandbox for someone to go and do that here. There's far too much red tape, far too much taxes, and far too many politicians wanting to be in your pocket. That will never happen. So we have to rely on American entrepreneurs, American businesses to hopefully, prayerfully one day open up their factories here in Canada and manufacture their product here. Until the day comes that a Donald Trump comes into office and says, we want to bring all that home now. And now leaving us in the lurch in the process, because we haven't built anything for ourselves. We haven't been trying to bring manufacturing home. We haven't been actively trying to secure our borders and actively bolster our economy. We've been relying on others. China, America, EU to a degree, not doing a whole lot for ourselves. And so when that news broke, and then as well as seeing the meeting Carney had with Trump, Angus Reid did a poll asking people the question, what did you think of that meeting? Was it more fluff fugazi? Or do you think this is going to lead to something concrete and a deal happening between the two countries that's going to benefit us? This is what was asked. It says, which statement is closer to your own point of view? The warm tone between the leaders signals real potential for progress toward a mutually acceptable trade agreement, which is the blue. And then the next statement is, the improved tone is merely optics and will not lead to any substantive change in the Canada-US trade conflict, and gray just being not sure, can't say. It's overwhelmingly across parties. That meeting with Trump was just optics. Nothing's going to happen. Even liberal voters said, I don't expect anything to come from this. NDP, almost as high as the Conservatives, saying, just optics. Bloc Québécois, 69%, just optics. For a total of 67% of subjects saying this was just optics. Nothing's going to come from it. People are starting to see through all this BS, man. The show, it's not working. Carney's getting crushed in the process, and so is our country. People are seeing right through it every day. Which brings us to the question, we have a budget coming up here November 4th, supposedly. And this is something Reg brought up on our show last night, which I very much appreciated, was what happened in House of Commons yesterday. Is with this budget upcoming, this is naturally going to be a confidence vote. With people feeling like this and seeing our auto sector get crushed in the process, how on God's green earth is Carney going to get his budget passed if everyone is seeing through his charade and not seeing any results from anything he said he's going to be doing? As I said, that QP that happened the first question period after Carney got back from the US was probably one of the craziest question periods I've seen since Poilievre got kicked out of the House of Commons last year. It was insane. Reg made the joke that actually I think everyone should have been kicked out of the House of Commons that day. It was nuts. It was unhinged because every party wanted a piece of Carney. They were upset. They were ticked off. So how does one get that bill passed knowing it's going to be north of, could be, $100 billion deficit? How? How is he going to do it? Well, Carney said it in French yesterday, just so that it got right to the French speakers, the steel and aluminum sectors, in order to get the Bloc Québécois to play ball, in order to get their budget passed. Listen to this.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite will have the opportunity to support programs for the steel, aluminum sectors and all the sectors in Quebec and Canada with the current budget that will be tabled on November 4th.
You catch that? His response to Blanchette here was, well, you have an opportunity on November 4th to support your steel and aluminum sectors in Quebec. If you vote for our budget, those sectors will get federal money. So you can play ball and I can then, give you the money that you want and I can go on my merry way and get past this confidence vote. Or you can vote no and I can just go to all the Quebec voters and say, oh, he doesn't care about you. We wanted to give you guys money to get through this time. And the Bloc said no. So how do you think this is going to go? Mark Carney in the House of Commons just promised to pay for votes on the House floor in order to get his budget passed November 4th. Because he knows no deal is coming. He knows he's not going to get anything done. People are all visibly upset, and we're seeing it in the data. So the most liberal thing you could do, just give them money. Let them play. We'll continue to burn up the Canadian dollar in the process. Yep, we can't get any deals done. People don't have jobs, and we're not producing anything. So we'll just subsidize. Sounds like a bang-up strategy. But anyways, this is going to be my only video for today because we are going into a Thanksgiving long weekend. I'm going apple picking with my family this afternoon. However, I'll be back on this weekend to discuss what's been going on in PEI. Specifically, I've been making some calls and want to see what's really getting down to I really want to get down to the bottom of China essentially infiltrating PEI and running operations to continue to undermine our country. Very fascinating stuff. But anyways, enjoy your day. Have yourselves a good one. I'm out.